James is going to talk to you about Cosmos again. I'm just pointing this out. I didn't understand. I looked at the Olympic bingo and I don't know what you're supposed to do for that. And honestly, I don't know why Taylor Swift is getting so much advertising from our local public library. Like, is she paying for it? If not, she should not be getting it. It's, this is the second time that I've noticed in just a few months that she's getting...
There's a Taylor Swift fan there. She's a nice person.
She is a nice person, but Taylor Swift should not be getting free advertising from our local public library. So anyway, I'm going to read my revised version of the poem that I wrote earlier today, and I read earlier today to the camera. So this is urban hikes again. We loved our urban hikes. We'd leave the house by 7 and drive to reach a place, a peaceful place in nature. We'd rarely see the likes of man, like it was heaven. Each human left no trace, so we felt free, and free felt great. Our urban hikes have been too urban for us lately. We're breathing in exhaust where car sounds drown out talking. Since homes where walks begin, their qualities drop greatly. The good outweighs the cost of driving out to take a walk. We walk to find a car in car lots that we visit. Each walk solidifies the benefits of driving. We've walked so very far that driving seems exquisite. We walk and realize that driving helps us stay alive. So that's my revised poem, and I think it's quite a bit better now. I don't know if you could hear that. I changed only the first stanza, really. The other ones I left, and it could change yet. I don't know if it's going to change again, but I won't be reading whatever I change. I'm just giving you an example of how a little revision can really help. But anyway, maybe you didn't hear the difference. No, I will. So you go ahead and read off or talk about Cosmos, whatever, and I'm gonna shuck your corn for you that I grilled, and then
I'll save the people at home watching me chow down. My favorite chowing down on corn scene is one Johnny Depp movie where he's playing. He looks like a shy guy, but he ends up being quite aggressive. I'm kind of giving it away, but he's chomping on the corn cobs. He's showing a lot of teeth while doing it. So I'll review a little bit of the Michael Faraday thing. He was a child of poverty, and they do a pretty good job of emphasizing how people who come from, in this series, Cosmos, how people from deprived backgrounds, especially ones that involved lack of money or like being the wrong gender, have made contributions to science. In some cases they overrate it. In this case they don't. Michael Faraday was born in poverty.
You're all set.
So they say he made our world today. To a certain extent he did. The electrical part of the world. They were doing stuff with electricity before him. I think they maybe overrated that a little bit, but he made some important inventions. He was they say the greatest genius who ever lived was Newton. I don't know. I mean, physics isn't the end-all and be-all of things. Astronomers and physicists might think otherwise, but yeah. I mean, in another lecture, what's his name? Tyson says that the most revolutionary change in the world was the theory of evolution. Well, that's biology, or pseudo-biology, really. The step that Darwin made was a misstep, was a false step. you know, they keep on saying, they don't use the term survival of the fittest, they use the term natural selection or something like that. I'm not sure if Darwin used both, but I'm pretty sure he used survival of the fittest, or that came out of very, very dangerous philosophy, and it's philosophy, not science. Survival of the fittest is basically a negative process. It doesn't lead anywhere. If I put a sequence of numbers, one of these times I will do it for one of the lectures, I will do it. I'll put a sequence of numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, the digits up to 9, and then I'll eliminate one number, and that will leave do. It's a negative process. Let's say we eliminate 2. All of a sudden you got 0, 1, 3. Now you've got 8 digits. And then we keep on eliminating. Survival of the fittest. And you'll eventually be down to 1. It doesn't really generate anything. So now what they've done is, the biologist says, Darwin was great, but there's this thing called mutation. Yeah, mutation is a positive process, in the sense that it's, in most cases, it actually
Why they want you
has
born.
developments that don't work out in any sort of reality that we've got right now. But it's...
Well, and we already know that. We're still believing in, or a lot of people are believing in Darwinism in various forms, but
yeah, it
I mean,
leads
unfortunately,
to
social
genocide.
Yeah, but deep down, we know that it's not true, because I mean, we can see that an ecosystem is stronger with greater diversity, not with less diversity.
Yeah.
So we all know that deep down. We know that
We
it's
should know
wrong.
it if we don't.
We know that that Darwin was absolutely wrong.
Yeah, and understand he was a racist. You know, like, he wasn't as bad maybe as some of the other guys. Francis Galton, I think, a relation of Darwin, and so a fairly close cousin maybe, or something like that. Absolutely shameful. Some of the stuff that came out in the wake of Darwin, the latter part of the 19th century and the first half, basically, the 20th century. You know, the reductio ad absurdum was Hitler and his horrible philosophy, but that comes out of Darwinism, not out of evolution. Evolution is different, but you know, it was just a false step, very dangerous false step. The important thing for people to
I'm
do
putting your corn
is,
inside.
the
really
important thing for people to do is understand that and file him away under quack. He was a quack. You got that? One of the amazing things about this Cosmos series is how, yes, certain people like Michael Faraday are presented as something like geniuses. There's no such thing as a genius, but he was awesome and awesome. I think he wasn't born a genius. I don't think they said he didn't do well in school or anything like that. He just worked at it. He had a genius basically for work. Anyway, the greatest genius who ever lived, Newton. Well, I don't know. Newton made some big mistakes. Huge mistake was saying light was a particle. You know, a little less than 100 years after Newton died, a guy called Thomas Young, and he's, I think, basically given short shrift. I haven't heard Bozo, otherwise known as Neil deGrasse Tyson, mention Thomas Young. But Thomas Young, about 1800, maybe exactly 1800, he, in essence, proved that light was a ray. Newton died 1727. Yeah, light was a wave, Newton said. And understand there was a contemporary of Newton that said, I think it was Dutch guy, Huygens maybe, said light's a wave. Thomas Young proved it. And Newton, of course, is going around saying it's a particle. And then, unfortunately, a guy called Albert Einstein, who's supposed to be even greater in some people's books, then Newton came along and said, wow, it's both a wave and a particle. Now that's really stupid. It can't be both, it's one or the other. And Thomas Young's proves it's a wave, so it's a wave. Why this idea that it's both? Because in some experiments it looks as though it's a wave, and in some experiments the only way to explain the weirdness is to say it's a particle. But it's not really experiment, it's just experience. Okay, light comes through a vacuum. Oh, it's got to be a particle. Yeah. See, they haven't figured out, physicists haven't figured out yet the results of what happened. Faraday is looking at magnets, and he might not have been the first, but he's putting iron filings around a magnet. And he's seeing that there are little things that look like lines. And guess what? They're not lines. They're really like the equivalent of a, like you could put several different hides on the football, not just pig skin, maybe bull skin around the pig skin, so on and so forth. And that's basically what so-called lines of force, magnetic force, are. They're not lines. They are envelopes. They're envelopes, and they actually, I can remember talking to physicists in the 21st century. Oh, lines of force don't exist. Yeah, they're not lines, but there are envelopes, and they exist. They're not solid in the sense of this sort of stuff, but they exist. Get that straight. That's a physicist. And it's not like a junior physicist, someone presumably with a PhD. No, it's at Flunky University, relatively Flunky University of Lethbridge. It's been pretty good to me. I shouldn't really run it down. And I'm not really, physics anywhere in the world. It's just theoretical physics is full of flunkies. Right from the top on down. Einstein all the way down through Niels Bohr and whatever. Heisenberg. Maybe not so much... what is his name? A contemporary of Heisenberg who didn't use matrices to explain quantum theory, but he probably was pretty off base too. All of quantum theory is just wackazoid. Strong force is just insane. It doesn't exist. The numbers for neutrons, stable neutrons, tell us, or should have been telling us, a century, almost a century, since the 1930s, should have been telling us the structure of a neutron is a crystal, and it's either body-centered or face-centered crystal. It might change with iron. It might be a face-centered up to iron, and then there's neutron. Did I say neutrons? Nuclei. I meant nuclei. I just woke up. Nuclei. It's almost certainly body-centered iron on up to maybe infinity. I don't know. We've got up, I think, to about 118 elements discovered. So, a child of poverty made our world today, to a certain extent. There's a lot of stuff being done with electricity outside of us. It wasn't just Michael Faraday. The greatest genius who ever lived. Newton. There were people like Robert Hooke. Robert Hooke is given short shrift in this. He's made to look like a hunchbacked, bald, nasty old guy. Newton was a nasty guy, not even when he was old. He was always fighting, not just with Robert Hooke, with Leibniz and Leibniz's supporters. He was arguing with him. He'd argue. He was borderline insane. Newton was. And that isn't the way it's presented. You never got that impression of Newton the way it's presented.
Well, right? They did mention about him looking for secret languages. And
that sort of stuff. I don't care about that.
No.
I'm talking about him not getting along with people. He was a really, really nasty guy. I suspect he was the oldest son. A very, very worried about his place in reality, where he was going to be put. He said, if I've seen further, it's because I've stood on the shoulders of giants. But he really had this idea that he was on the shoulder of giants. He was a big giant on top of other giants. What's his face? Faraday was born in a slum, 1791, long time ago. It's more than 200 years ago. Apparently had trouble pronouncing R's, so he said rabbit, wabbit, and he was going to get the strap, and he might have actually got a flogging, but his mom took him out of school, and they did. It wasn't just resident schools where kids got strapped. I mean, Catholic schools were nasty things. Like I just met a woman today on the way here, and she was went to Catholic school, and the nun teaching there, speaking of having trouble speaking, she had trouble. She was deaf. They didn't realize she was deaf, and so the nun shamed this woman. She was then a girl. Oh, Barb doesn't want to hear you. She's just ignoring you. So we'll ignore her or something like that. Absolutely shameful. This woman is just a little bit older than me, so she'd be in maybe her early 70s and stuff like that. Nasty things happen in Catholic schools, not just in resident schools. Right? Get that straight. There'd be strapping and all that sort of stuff. Taking the kids away from their parents was a nasty thing. Of course, in England, parents were only too willing to send their kids to resident schools. That's where rich kids were sent, but that was a choice. It wasn't as though their kids were enlisted to go to resident schools. So the problem was a lack of choice for resident schools. He was given a fundamentalist upbringing. So, like this, cosmos is very secular. But they do mention that Newton was kind of like he kind of believed in a god and stuff like that. I don't know, a lot of our scientists, great scientists have actually believed in God. Faraday he worked in a book bindery starting age 13, not very nice, And, but the thing is, he'd bind the books and he'd read some of them. I guess the stuff that really interested him. So, age 21, he got a free ticket to go see Humphrey Davy, put on a show. Now, Humphrey Davy is presented as being kind of a dork, and I think he was, basically, upper class and exactly rich. And he did discover calcium and natrium, so Na. That's why we use Na for many languages use the term natrium and natrium to describe sodium. And so he used a couple of batteries for a show, Humphrey Davy did, and that really impressed Michael Faraday. And then Faraday made notes of this, and actually he was so good, and become so good at bookbinding, he bound his notes up and sent the book to Humphrey Davy, and Humphrey Davy was impressed enough to give Faraday a flunky job with him. So he went from one flunky job to another. So Humphrey Davy was so stupid, he was, I don't know what he was working on. It could have been potassium or something like that. He was saying someone else had lost their eyesight, putting fire to it or something. Maybe just exposing it to air. That's the thing about potassium. I had a teacher, a really stupid guy, who almost blew his head off in science class in grade 8 or 9. I think it was grade 8. He cut open some potassium, or just a little bar of potassium. And the next thing you know, there was a hole in the ceiling. It wasn't that big, but if he'd had his head over there, part of his brain, his wee small
would
brain,
be on the ceiling.
Would have been on the ceiling. Yeah, it would have gone right through his jaw, right through his brain. Really stupid. I don't know what he was thinking of. don't try this at school either, you know, not just at home. Anyway, Humphrey Davy, you know, it blew up in his face. I don't think he lost his sight, but he did lose it for a while. So then Michael Faraday became less of a flunky. He was more of a system, right? And so Faraday made the first motor, electric motor, that is. I think there'd be other motors, right? But I don't know. Maybe electrical motors before gas motors. And when Michael Faraday came up with this thing, Humphrey Davy didn't like that. He was being shown up. Apparently Michael Faraday became not just the talk of the town, but the talk of the civilized world. And Humphrey Davy didn't take it well. You know, that's not the way it should be. You know, like if someone's in a position of authority, they're kind of like a teacher, and they should they should be, if they're excelled by their student, they should take it well. But Humphrey Davy didn't. So he, according to the account here, he had Michael Faraday work on re-engineering or backward engineering some lens work that had been done in Bavaria by a guy called Fraunhofer. And he does deal with Fraunhofer in another one of his lectures. And poor Michael Faraday wasted 4 years of his time trying to reconstruct it. Yes, it didn't work out for him. So after, you know, the timeline is given in Cosmo, it looks as though after those 4 years, Humphrey Davy died and Michael Faraday took over his lab, that sort of stuff. And he was able to induce electricity by a moving magnet. He developed the first generator. That's first generator. I don't see the difference, but anyway, generator of electricity, that's the opposite thing. You use a motor to generate electricity. 1840, this is early, so about 49, he started suffering memory loss and depression, but he kept on going. You know, and that's the thing to do. If you got some challenges, just keep on going. So he would draw lines of force around a magnet by putting iron filings in the electromagnetic field around a magnet, or a magnetic field around, I should say. And he came up with the term, apparently, magnetic field. He called it a field. Now, I don't like the idea of field because that indicates it's a plane. It's not a plane. It exists in 3 dimensions, okay? But that's okay, you know, like if it's this almost 200 years ago. What we should be doing is we still use the term magnetic field. It's not a field. We should progress beyond that. So he also developed the transformer. Those are 3 major steps in the development of electricity, or the development of the use of electricity. So it was only, you know, he was talking about, Neil deGrasse Tyson, talking about how the Earth is a magnetic field. Understand, when Velikovsky started being scrunched down by the American Association for the Advancement of Science, which I call the American Association for the Advancement of Sophisticated Superstition. They had no clue that Earth had a magnetic field around it. The Van Allen belts, as I recall, were discovered by, I don't remember, they were 4 years old, 1958 perhaps, so 1 year after Sputnik. Maybe it's a little bit later than that. Couldn't have been earlier. Sputnik's the first fellow traveler in Russia. There are a lot of Sputniks around this world, and not just in Russia, unfortunately. They're fellow travelers of communists, even though there's no communism, really, strictly speaking, aside from the People's Republic of China, and it's not really that fundamentalist communist anymore. Anyway, the Van Allen belts, amazing. It was they should have known. In 1955, I believe it was, Jupiter was discovered to have a huge magnetic field, a magnetic field around it. Some guy almost blew his ears off. He was scanning the sky for using earphones, I guess, for radio sources. And, you know, he's looking for stars, and then all of a sudden he couldn't figure out what it was. It was Jupiter, a huge source of radio waves and stuff like that. So it kind of ends up with Michael Faraday couldn't do the math, so James Clerk Maxwell, who's basically a series of footnotes to Faraday, did come up with 4 equations. And it should be pointed out, I was saying the other day that he was a footnote, a series of footnotes to Faraday, but Faraday was dealing with static electricity, static electrical fields, and by chucking in a little bit of calculus onto his equations, Faraday was able to come up with calculus can deal with changes, so it's actually kind of like a moving magnetic field, and that's an important development. But he was a theoretician. He could do the equations, but math is not about equations. Equations are abbreviations. I know for a lot of physicists this is just going to come as a huge shock, but science is not about mathematics. Strictly speaking, it is definitely not about equations. Equations are abbreviations. Okay, you can write an equation out, be very clumsy, in any language you like. Not just English, not just German or whatever. You could write it in Poisson. Okay, so we're going to deal with the Great Dying. Because earlier today we did something. I was talking about comets and how one lecture is a different one. This is the third lecture on the third disc, what I'm dealing with now. But it was about how ridiculous the fear of comets was, inherited from our primitive ancestors. I'm using primitive in an ironic sense, okay? And so this one, the Great Dying, 90% of all species died. 9 out of 10 species died. So I think this is at the end of the Permian, 10 minutes?
Couple
of minutes. So they found, the Guadalupe mountain chain. It's just a big fossil reef is left there. So what happened there? I don't know if they've really figured it out. You know, they have figured out at the end of the Cretaceous there was a huge impact, comet, meteorite. The meteorite would have been, I don't know, it wouldn't have been an asteroid really, but the crater that they found on the edge of the Yucatan Peninsula is as big as some of the big craters on the moon. It's stunning. It's not like the little crater you see around Flagstaff, Arizona, if you're down there, and pictures from down there. Huge. My suspicion is that it was a variety of different impacts, including stuff that was, you know, that hit the ocean. And the thing with the ocean is the youngest surface on the Earth. It's way younger than it's constantly getting regenerated and ground up underneath the continents. And we wouldn't have ocean surface that would date back to 65 million BC. So we don't know how many impacts the Earth suffered in that one incident. But I'll be talking more about the Great Dying. I am telling you, he talks about 5 extinctions that have hit the world. Every one of them would be comets, okay? Every one of them would be comets hitting the world.